Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
B. Demon sent me a story from the Great Northwest. KIRO 7. Their news staff wrote it. And the headline tells you what you need to know, but it gets better. Man arrested after showing up to Everett court in the stolen truck. The man drove himself to court in a stolen truck. Now, to his credit, he was not going to court for auto theft. So there's that, although he probably will be in the future. A man was arrested in Everett after he arrived at court driving a stolen truck, according to the Everett Police Department. According to police, the man was already wanted for violating a no-contact order. So he's called into court for violating a no-contact order. We'll talk about that in a second. And he shows up, and officers noticed that he was driving a Ford F-350, which had exempt government plates on it. And they decided to investigate further. Now, here's the thing. License plates also are the kind of thing that police officers just tend to look at as a matter of just instinct. They're trained, they're always looking at license plates. And so government exempt plates probably catch their attention more than just a typical plate. So if, and this is a pro tip for you, if you're going to steal a license plate and put it on your vehicle, or steal a license plate and put it on your stolen vehicle, don't go with a government exempt plate, because that might draw someone's attention also. So they noticed the F-350 he was driving had exempt government plates on it and decided to investigate. So they ran the plates and discovered that the plates did not belong on the 350. So they immediately spotted a problem, that the plate is not supposed to be on that truck. And it makes you wonder, how did that plate get on that truck? Officers then ran the vehicle identification number, and the truck was recorded as stolen. So the truck was stolen with an inappropriate plate on it also. Now, whether the plate was stolen or not, that's another story altogether. But the point is that they spotted the unusual plate, ran the VIN, and determined that the truck was stolen. Now, some people are going to say, Steve, how'd they get the VIN? Well, on most modern vehicles, you can walk up and look through the windshield, the base of the A-pillar, and right there is the vehicle identification number. Now, some people will put something over that if they don't want it to be seen, but apparently this guy hadn't done that. The question is what they would have done if, in fact, he had covered the VIN. But then again, with the mismatched plate, he's already got a problem. So, by the way, and again, pro tip number 2. Courthouses are crawling with police any day of the week. If you want to find police officers in this day and age, number 1 place to go look for them, the police station. Number 2, the courthouse. There's always police officers in the courthouse, almost always. So if you're going to be driving a vehicle with the wrong plate on it, or a stolen vehicle with the wrong plate on it, the last place you want to go would be the police station. Second to last place, the court. So they ran the VIN and they came back as stolen. They then contacted the man inside the courthouse, and he said, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't drive that truck here. He denied having arrived in the stolen F-350. One other pro tip I'll give you is there's often a lot of camera surveillance around courthouses. And here there was. So we'll get there in a second. Officers found a key on him that would start the F-350. They found a key that just happened to go to the F-350. They also checked the courthouse surveillance video, and in the video they saw him pull in, park the truck, and exit the truck. So his statement to them saying, I didn't arrive in that truck, was false, and they proved it very quickly. So when they looked in the truck, they found his driver's license was on the front seat of the truck. So think of this. If he'd been smart, he would have brought his license with him but left the key in the truck. You could hide the key someplace. Just don't lock the door. Because that would have solved a lot of his problems in a roundabout way. At least it would have made this a little more difficult to prove. But they have the video of him getting out of the truck. That's going to cook him. But I'm just saying that the fact that they found the driver's license in the truck and the key on him, 2 more things. So they have the courthouse video of him arriving, parking, and exiting, and his license was found on the front seat of the truck. So the man was booked for the violation of the no-contact order and possession of a stolen vehicle. So he goes to court on the no-contact order, and he walks out of court charged with both that and the stolen vehicle possession, which is another problem. And of course, they wanted to, they could tack onto it the use of the plate and a bunch of other stuff. I'm not sure how much more of that would happen. We don't know. The story is a little bit scant on details, and I suspect that's simply because the police found the story so amusing. They thought they'd pass it along, but they didn't pass along the rest of it. They simply gave us the funny parts. So that's interesting. And some people are going to ask what a no-contact order is. A lot of states call it a PPO, Personal Protection Order, or some equivalent thereof. In Michigan, it's a PPO. And in Michigan, there's two different kinds of PPOs, and you can go to court and get a personal protection order issued against somebody based on one of two things. And the one you hear about quite often is a domestic violence PPO. So let's suppose that, and I'm giving you hypotheticals here, but a man and a woman get divorced and it is acrimonious, if you can imagine such a thing. And there's a lot of unhappiness between the husband and the wife. And let's assume that the husband, for whatever reason, decides that he's not going to take this sitting down, as they say, and occasionally screams and yells at his ex-wife, and he drives by the house, and occasionally he drives across the lawn, and he calls the house at 4 o'clock in the morning to wake her up, and sometimes he goes to her work and screams and yells at her there, and he's got to get hauled out of the store because he followed her into the store while she's shopping. She can go to court and get a domestic violence PPO and say, there's this man, I had a relationship with him, but now there's a problem, and I'm worried about violence, and his behavior is certainly something that needs to be looked at, and a court will issue a PPO that says that he has got to avoid contact with her. And that's why they call it a no-contact order in some states. And they're often issued in the two different settings. One is a domestic violence, and the other one is often referred to as an anti-stalking. Anti-stalking. And that is merely somebody who's following somebody else around, and the person being followed doesn't like being followed. And we've heard these stories before, and unfortunately Hollywood makes it look like it's funny because so many romantic comedies have got some guy following a woman around, and it turns out at the end of the movie she likes him and they get married. But in real life, it turns out women don't like creepy guys following them around. And I'm not saying I know this from personal experience because I don't. I'm just simply telling you that as an attorney in 31 years of seeing what I've seen and hearing what I've heard, there are people out there who don't get the message. They just don't get the message. And after a while of being stalked, someone can go to court and say, a person is stalking me. And I'm not going to get into the different definitions of it, but if you can show a pattern of somebody following you around or going to your workplace or going to your home and we've heard these crazy stories. David Letterman famously had a woman stalking him. She'd break into his house. He'd come home from work and she'd be sitting in his living room watching TV, waiting for the David Letterman show to come on. Hey, David, you're home. And so there are those two different kinds of orders you can get in Michigan. And they're pretty much the same. It's just that the setting in which they're issued is different. And so they will serve it on the person who is subject to it. And they'll tell them, you cannot contact this person by in person, by phone, by text, by Facebook, by email. You must stay so far away from them. You must avoid certain places. You can't go to their workplace. You can't go within 100 yards of their house. You can't go, and they'll lay these things out. Now, I know right now, there's someone typing. And if you're typing right now, stop, because I'm about to answer the question. There are occasions where someone's going to get an order, and they say, Your Honor, I want this person to be kept away from me. I want at least 100 yards. Where do they live? Next door. How close is the house? 30 feet. Well, it's hard for them to live next door if they have to stay 100 yards away from you. So a court will look at different things like that, obviously. But the bulk of the problems arise because people do things that are beyond the pale. So it'll be like, oh, this person called my work 75 times a shift, every single shift I worked, 75 times, or whatever. And they'll say, you can't do these things. Now, some of you are going to start typing right now. I know what you're going to type. How do you prove that? How do you prove that? Well, some of this stuff will be difficult to prove. Some of it might not be. But what will happen is, if there's an allegation of somebody violating the PPO or the no contact order or whatever it's called in your state, the court will then hold a hearing. The court will bring the person in who's accused of breaking it or violating it. The court will bring in the person who has the order and have this person bring in their witnesses, if there are any, and try to determine whether or not this person violated the order. Because if you violate a PPO in Michigan and in most states, I even checked this, you can get up to 93 days in jail and up to a $500 fine, which is pretty much what happens to you with a misdemeanor. So that's a serious thing. It's not a civil infraction where they're going to slap your wrist and say pay $35. You can go to jail for violating the PPO or the no contact order. So that's a very, very serious thing. But again, they usually get issued when there's a very, very serious problem where somebody simply can't stop being an annoyance at the level at which something like this should be issued. So that's what's happening there. The man came to court for his no contact order, wound up leaving after having been charged with possession of a stolen truck. Good news is someone's getting their truck back. Bad news is this guy's not exactly the brightest criminal that's been in court in Everett, Washington. So a man arrested after showing up to Everett court in a stolen truck with a bad license plate. And he was there for violating a no contact order, for which he was also found to have done that as well. So not good. B Demon, thanks for sending it. KIRO7. Their news staff wrote it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Young me says, I hope something good happens. Old me, I hope whatever bad thing happens at least is funny.